318 trillion. That's how much debt exists in the world right now. Not some projection for the future, not a worst-case scenario. That's the actual number confirmed by the Institute of International Finance at the end of 2024. Now, here's the part that should make your stomach drop. The entire world economy, everything we produce in a year, is only worth about $105 trillion. We owe 3 times more than we make. And while all this is happening, silver is sitting at $6,400 an ounce. You want to know why that matters? Because we've seen this movie before, not once, not twice. We've watched this exact sequence play out across every major civilization in human history. And right now, we're in Act 3 of a 4-act play that always ends the same way. Let me show you the pattern. It's simple, almost uncomfortably simple. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Most people refuse to accept that something this straightforward could dismantle an entire financial system. Act 1. A nation begins with real money. Gold coins, silver coins, something tangible, something you can hold in your hand. This creates confidence, trade expands, the economy grows. People trust the currency because it stands for something real, not a promise. Act 2, the government needs more money. Maybe there's a war. Maybe there are costly social programs. Maybe leaders just want to hold on to power, so they start bending the rules. Coins contain less gold. More paper gets printed than there is metal to support it. Officials insist the currency is still sound because they say it is, and for a while the public believes them. The money supply balloons, while the real wealth behind it doesn't. Act 3, prices begin to rise. The currency loses strength. People start to notice. They exchange paper for anything tangible. Land, commodities, gold, silver. The government panics and prints even more to meet its obligations. That only accelerates the damage. Prices spiral. Confidence evaporates. Social cohesion starts to crack. Act 4. The currency fails. Sometimes suddenly. Sometimes slowly over decades. But it always fails. The government either rolls out a new currency or is forced back toward commodity-based money. The system resets. Civil unrest is common. In some cases, the entire regime collapses. And this is the part that matters to you. Those who recognized the signs and moved into real assets endure. Those who trusted the paper lose everything. Now let me show you this isn't just theory. Let me show you this pattern playing out again and again with mechanical precision. We start with Rome, 64 AD. Emperor Nero is facing a crisis. The Great Fire has just wiped out nearly 2/3 of the city. Wars against Parthia are draining the treasury. Internal unrest is bleeding money. The Jewish revolt is consuming resources. And Rome's silver mines can't supply enough metal to cover what the empire needs to spend. So Nero makes a choice. The denarius, Rome's silver coin, had been roughly 95% pure since the reign of Augustus. Nero reduces that purity to about 80%. Same coin, less silver, more coins struck from the same amount of metal. On the surface, the problem looks solved. In reality, a destructive precedent is set. Fast forward to 197 AD. Emperor Septimius Severus wants to secure the loyalty of his army. He doubles soldiers' pay, but the empire can't afford it. The denarius is diluted again, falling to around 46% silver. His son, Caracalla, pushes it further. In 215 AD, he introduced a new coin claimed to be worth 2 denarii, but it contains barely 1.5 times the silver. By the time Gallienus ruled in the 26 OH, the silver content had collapsed to roughly 5%. What was once a true silver coin has become bronze with a thin silver coating. Then the consequences arrive. Grain prices triple. Soldiers refuse to accept the currency and demand payment in goods instead. The economy begins to seize up. People hoard the older coins that still contain real silver. Bad money drives good money out of circulation. By 310 AD, Constantine was forced to introduce an entirely new monetary system, just to restore a measure of stability. The old denarius is effectively worthless. It takes millions of them to equal a single new gold coin. The pattern is complete. All four acts played out, and Rome, the dominant superpower of its era, was brought to this point, just as America dominates the world today. Now fast forward to Germany 1914 through 1923. When World War I begins, Germany abandons the gold standard. Leaders are convinced the war will be short and that the defeated nations will cover the costs. They are wrong. Germany loses. The Treaty of Versailles slams the country with 132 billion gold marks in reparations. In today's terms, that's well over $500 billion. Annual payments consume roughly 25% of national output. The new democratic government wants stability. They want to rebuild. They want social programs. Tax revenue covers only about 37% of spending. So the Reichsbank turns on the printing press. Before 1914, Germany's mark was gold-backed, one of the strongest currencies in Europe, a solid foundation. Then the presses start running to pay for everything. In early 1922, $1 US cost 160 marks. Bad, but survivable. By December 1922, it's 7,400 marks to the dollar, a 46-fold collapse in just 6 months. Then 1923 arrives to seize resources as payment. The German government responds by funding a general strike, paying 2 million workers not to work. Printing goes into overdrive. By June 1923, it took 192,000 marks to buy $1. In October, 170 billion. By November 4th, 2 trillion marks per dollar. People push wheelbarrows of cash to buy bread. A student orders coffee, and before a second cup can be poured, the price jumps 40%. Workers are paid twice a day because morning wages are worthless by afternoon. Farmers refuse paper entirely, food disappears, starvation spreads, the middle class is wiped out. Within a decade, the trauma and desperation left by this collapse helped propel Hitler to power. On November 15, 1923, the government introduced the Rentenmark. 1 trillion old marks become one new unit. Overnight, the old currency is dead. The system resets. Same pattern, all four acts. A nation with some of the best scientists and engineers on Earth couldn't stop it. Now look at the United States. August 15, 1971. President Nixon goes on television and shuts the gold window. Foreign governments can no longer exchange dollars for gold. Since World War II, the dollar had been backed at $35 per ounce. Nixon claims the move is temporary, meant to stabilize the system. The window is never reopened. From 1944 to 1971, the dollar was anchored to gold, and other currencies were tied to the dollar. That structure produced the post-war boom, stable trade, and monetary order. But by 1971, there are 4 times more dollars in circulation than gold to support them. The Federal Reserve has been printing to finance Vietnam, the Great Society, and expanding government promises. Once the gold constraint is gone, limits disappear. The 1970s brings stagflation and oil shocks. The dollar collapses against real assets. Gold rises from $35 an ounce in 1970 to $850 by 1980, a 24-fold increase. That isn't gold soaring, that's the dollar being revealed, and the printing never ends. Every financial crisis adds trillions. In 2020 alone, nearly $6 trillion is created in 18 months. Today, U.S. national debt stands around $36.1 trillion. Interest alone costs $892 billion a year, more than the defense budget. By 2034, annual interest is projected to reach $1.7 trillion. Here's what that means right now. Before 1971, rising productivity meant rising wages. After 1971, productivity kept climbing, but real wages stalled. The wealth gap explodes. Asset prices inflate while purchasing power erodes. In 1971, a median income worker could save and buy a home in about 25 years. Today, it takes well over 70%. Food costs more, energy costs more, healthcare costs more. The middle class is squeezed from every side, And globally, confidence in the dollar is weakening. Central banks diversify away from it. BRICS nations openly discuss alternatives. China and Russia accumulate gold at record levels. We are deep into late Act 3. The pressure is building. So where does silver enter the story? Across every monetary breakdown in history, people move toward what's real. Gold and silver have served as money for thousands of years, not out of nostalgia, but because they can't be printed, diluted, or created by decree. Gold sits around $42,300 an ounce. Silver trades near $64. That puts the ratio at roughly 67 to 1. Over long stretches of history, that ratio typically falls somewhere between 15 to 1 and 50 to 1. During currency stress, it compresses fast. If the ratio merely returned to the long-term average of 50 to 1 with gold where it is today, silver would be near $80 an ounce. That's about a 34% move just to reach the mean. But the pattern goes deeper than ratios. In Rome, as money failed, citizens hoarded silver coins. In Weimar Germany, as paper lost all meaning, people bartered for tangible goods. In every currency crisis on record, precious metals become the shelter. Silver, both an industrial necessity and a monetary metal, is trading near multi-year highs while global debt stands at $318 trillion. Central banks are creating money without restraint. The historical pattern is unfolding in real time. Adjusted for inflation, silver's 1980 peak would be about $194 today. The 2011 high equates to roughly $70, and yet silver trades around $64. A metal that has functioned as money for millennia is priced as if nothing is wrong, as if this debt load is manageable, as if this time really is different. That's always the claim: American exceptionalism, reserve currency privilege, modern monetary theory, technology, institutions. The same confidence existed in Rome when it ruled the known world. The same confidence existed in Weimar Germany, one of the most advanced societies of its era. The pattern is indifferent. You cannot sustain $318 trillion in debt against $105 trillion in annual output. You cannot dilute a currency forever. You cannot print your way into prosperity. These aren't beliefs, they're math. Economics obeys rules the same way physics does. You can deny them, but you can't escape them. And when they reassert themselves, they do so quickly and without mercy. Silver isn't a trade, it's protection, it's coverage against the certainty that this debt structure has an endpoint. It's a wager that history doesn't suddenly stop applying because we have smartphones and artificial intelligence, especially at $64 an ounce. With the gold-silver ratio stretched near 67 to 1, debt at record levels, money creation ongoing, and interest rates trapped because higher rates would destabilize the entire structure, the risk-reward equation is extreme. This pattern has been running for 3,000 years. It played out in Rome, it played out in Weimar, it played out after Nixon. The system doesn't care what you think, it simply executes. And right now, it's executing. Buy silver not because you expect the world to end, but because you recognize patterns. Buy it because $318 trillion in debt requires a resolution. And every historical case we have shows that resolution comes through the repricing of real assets against weakening currencies. Buy it because when Act 4 finally arrives, the people holding real assets are the ones who endure. The machine is already in motion. The only question is whether you'll be prepared when the final act begins. If you want to understand how this system was constructed, who designed it, and the specific steps you can take to protect yourself when Act 4 hits, subscribe now. The next video breaks down how money is created, why central banks are quietly accumulating gold while claiming inflation is contained, and the three assets that have survived every recorded currency collapse. This isn't a conspiracy, it's pattern recognition. And the pattern is shouting,